My colleague Pascal Simon was attending the World Blitz Championships in Berlin, and he managed to use a bit of elbow diplomacy to get through the crowds to do a bit of filming. So he's managed to capture some of the Blitz games that were played there, and we've got some great encounters for you. I'd like to introduce those games that he managed to record. So first of all, game between Alexander Moiseenko and Shahriar Mamedyarov. Now, Moiseenko is a very classical player, former European individual champion. I don't think of him as being a particular Blitz expert, but still, he is a formidable player. Mamedyarov, of course, one of the world's elite over the past few years, and a real Blitz expert, actually. Well, this was the position after 20 moves, and frankly, Mamedyarov did not have a very good opening, and Moiseenko has taken control. You can see these two really wonderful pawns on e5 and f5, ready to thrust forward to open up Black's king. But over the last few moves, Mamedyarov managed to just get back into the game a little bit. You'll notice when he managed to get the knight into e4 and the bishop on c5, there was kind of, you could see a bit of enthusiasm coming into his moves. He kind of looked a bit more up for it. Let me just take you through the next few moves. Mamedyarov tried f6. I mean, his position really isn't great. Moiseenko dealt with this extremely well, and it's a very, very complicated position. Well, with the knight coming into e6, Mamedyarov just decided to ditch an exchange. So there we go, knight takes f8. And now, this is a really clever move from Moiseenko. Queen e2. Very subtle indeed. For a Blitz game, this is very clever. Now, this knight is an appalling piece. It has to come back into the game. So, therefore, knight c8, the only chance. But here's Moiseenko's idea. He exchanged the knight off and played queen c4 check. King goes in the corner, and now this crushing move, f6. If that's taken by the rook, then knight f7 is murderous. So Mamedyarov had to play pawn takes, and now knight g4. You can see the bishop's diagonal has opened up towards the king. It's so nasty. Knight d6, only chance. Rook takes f6. Great move from Moiseenko, threatening rook takes rook. Checkmate. Rook f6, only move. And here, well, the queen is attacked. Moiseenko chose queen c3. He's running very short of time. If he'd played queen b3 or dropped the queen back to c1, I don't think Mamedyarov would have survived. For example, if knight e8, then you can take and play queen g5 followed by bishop f6, and that really is the end of the show. Instead, Moiseenko went for queen c3. Looks like a really natural move, and it's still good for white. But after knight takes b5, Mamedyarov was in with a chance. He had a chance. It's incredible how it's that knight, which was completely offside, which has somehow turned the game round. And, well, Moiseenko dived into an endgame. Of course, this should be completely winning for white, but there were plenty of twists and turns on the way. I won't spoil the result for you, but watch out for that one. Shahriar Mamedyarov, incredibly cool in this game, just playing on with seconds left. Just to remind you, time control in this tournament was 3 minutes at the start, and then 2 seconds each time you make a move. Okay, let's move on. Plenty of other games to look at. Pavel Elyanov against Dmitry Andreikin. So two very strong classical players. Andreikin is on the attack. He's moved his queen over to the king's side. this knight on d2 is under fire. Now, he could play very sensibly with knight b3. He was running very low on time, and he went for it with knight f3. I mean, this is a real lunge. And here, suddenly he hesitated. He went to grab the rook. He moved towards the queen. He played queen takes h3, but after knight e4, this knight came to the rescue on the king side. So if the rook goes to h5, then, well, for example, knight g3 just defends. So Andreikin played queen f3. And here, white has a big choice. You could take the rook, but that leads to a perpetual. You can take that rook. That would be the better one. Instead, Ulyanov played a tempting check, but the king escaped here. And after queen takes knight, although white is a whole rook up here, things are not so clear. I won't spoil the end of the game for you, but yeah, very cool defense from Andreikin in this game. I'll leave you to it. Okay, next game. Bocharov against Anand. Well, Bocharov, you might have already seen the video with Grishuk playing against Bocharov. Bocharov was outplayed, but here Bocharov has built up a very nice attacking position against Anand's king here, ready to double on the g-file. Anand's defences are holding pretty solid for the time being, but, well, perhaps you'd like to think of white's next move in this position, because the manoeuvre that Bocharov found really put Anand under huge amounts of pressure. White to play, what would you play here? Okay, next game. Tomashevsky against Kazimjanov. Well, Kazimjanov finished, he did pretty well in this one. He got 13.5 out of 21, finished in 10th position. He's a good player. Tomashevsky, well, very, very strong, solid player. He finished with 13. In their game, this was played in round 13, so the player's already tired. Here, Kazimjanov played queen e7. Looks very natural to try and stop white castling. Unfortunately, he completely overlooked d6. You can see after that move was played, you can see Rustam shaking his head. Can't believe that, because, of course, after that's taken, then the rook goes in the corner. But that certainly wasn't the end of the game. Check out the video. Very, very interesting game. Just to say, Rustam fought on with c6. Okay, next game, what have we got? Aronian against Anand. Now, some players, you'll notice Grishuk, for example, and Carlsen, they played kind of non-standard openings to throw their opponents. Aronian and Anand took the view that they wanted to play very classically, very correct chess, and we've got a very correct position here, but a very nice position for white. But I tell you what, Anand showed his class here. This wasn't the most spectacular game, but Anand showed what a brilliant defender he is. Very standard position with white playing against these hanging pawns and has a beautiful blockade on c5. And bad bishop on e6, good bishop on g2, but it's a nice position for white, blockading on the dark squares. But Anand managed to defend this. First of all, a4, and then a3. It's very important. This gives black just a little bit of counterplay, because he can always rely on that pawn, if the position breaks open, being a little bit insecure. Queen c3 looks deadly. Looks deadly with the attack here, but what cool defense from Anand. Simply rook a8, and if this pawn is taken, then the rook comes to b8. You can capture that pawn, and then suddenly there's counterplay on here and also on the first rank. Brilliant defense from Anand. But after this, well, Levon played rook a5, and the game went on. I don't want to spoil it for you. Okay, next game. Well, last game. Peter Svidler against Timur Radjabov. Svidler had a pretty good tournament. He finished in 7th position with 14 out of 21. Remember, Grishuk was the winner with 15.5. But Svidler had a good tournament. Playing Radjabov, who is a bit of a blitz specialist. It was a kind of non-standard opening, an early fianchetto from Svidler on the queen side, but they've reached, well, a fairly standard position. I talked earlier in the game that Grishuk played against Bocharov how when the pawn structure is fixed, that's what players like. Then they can position their pieces that when the structure is fixed, and that's what Svidler did here. You can see, well, both players have a pretty regular pawn structure. If I could play that pawn back to c7 to have that pawn defending d6, then I don't think there'd be anything wrong with black's position. But with the pawn on c5, you can see there's a backward pawn on d6. Now, it doesn't look like very much, but watch the way Svidler is able to target that. So first of all, rook d1, heading towards the semi-open file. Radjabov defends. Now that knight removes itself. Knight g3, swings around to a better position. The queen retreats, nothing to do on a5. And now, okay, remember, the target is d6, so Svidler doubles on the d file. Nice moves to play in a blitz game, you don't have to think too much. Radjabov can't find a plan, he was just playing very, very quickly. h3, Svidler has time just to give his king a little room. Radjabov still can't find a plan, that's dangerous. Bishop d3, that's an excellent move. After the trade of bishops, that makes it much easier for white to maneuver. Now Radjabov hits upon an idea. At least after that trade, he feels he's managed to activate his rook. Looking at the king, you never know, could be a counter shot there. Now, very nice manoeuvre from Svidler, redeploying the knight to a much better square, looking at the d5 square. So black is never going to be able to break out here. A little bit of shuffling from Svidler, rook d3, so he hits upon a really nice idea. Svidler's play so single-minded. So you can see how that exchange of bishops has allowed Svidler to triple his heavy pieces on the d-file, and well, that pawn looks like it's a goner, although Radjabov has managed to defend that pawn. Somehow this is not an easy position for black to play. Well, I don't want to spoil things for you. All I'm going to say is have a look to see whether Radjabov managed to shake free from this grip. He's a very good blitz player. And see how Svidler managed to increase the pressure in this position. I hope you enjoy these videos live from the Blitz World Championships in Berlin, and do join me on the Power Play Chess YouTube channel where I'll be posting more videos shortly. Thanks for watching.